So game week 2 in the Championship is now behind us, and we are here today to talk through all of the talking points. We've only got 10 matches to go over as we have the Coventry game controversially being postponed. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video, and we've also got another match going on tonight as well. But of those 10 matches, plenty of things to go ahead and discuss. As always, if you went to a match this weekend, get your thoughts on it in the comments down below. And do leave a like if you do go on to enjoy today's video, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Without any further ado though, let's hop into the matches. So starting out with Friday night's game, we had Birmingham beating Huddersfield by 2-1. Big result this for Birmingham, who a lot of people, myself included, had tipped them to struggle this season. But I thought their key player throughout this one was Bakuna. We spoke about Bakuna before the season started and how big of a player he could actually be for Birmingham this time around, and he seemed to be absolutely running the show in this one. 5 chances created, got the assist for that opening goal with that brilliant ball whipped in from that right hand side, and unlucky himself not to get on the score sheet as well. Birmingham found themselves 2-0 up at half time, Placheta adding the second just before that half time whistle, and once again another really sluggish and slow first half from this Huddersfield squad, who created virtually nothing in that opening 45 minutes. A similar tale to Huddersfield's opener against Burnley. There was a slight improvement after the break, a nice finish from Danny Ward to pull it back to 2-1, but once again not as much of an improvement to probably go ahead and warrant Huddersfield getting anything from this game. I thought that Birmingham were the deserved winners in the end. So I know it's only a small sample size of matches that we're working with at the moment. You know, we're only 2 games into this season, but on reflection of what I've seen from this Huddersfield squad so far, yeah, it's not looked particularly great. For Birmingham though, pretty good start to the season. 4 points with matches against Luton and Huddersfield. I think that every Birmingham fan will take that. Next then for Norwich, up against Wigan, this one finishing as a 1-1 draw. A little bit more optimism from Norwich in this one in terms of some of the play we saw within the final third. They had 22 shots throughout this game to Wigan's 6. It was Wigan who took the lead though, despite Norwich having a lot of the ball in this one. Wigan did get their pressing game absolutely spot on a few times in that first half. Will Keane winning the ball back and slipping in James McLean for 1-0 Wigan, and there did seem to be a couple of those openings for the away side in that first half. Norwich eventually do get back into the game though. Rashica slipping in Max Aarons, he makes it 1-1. Timu Pukki was pretty unlucky not to get on the score sheet as well. He hit the bar, had a couple of other close glimpses as well, and the controversy coming from this game was the penalty, which ultimately wasn't given to Norwich. On reflection and looking at that one back, I do think that Wigan have probably got away with one there. It's Tom Naylor's challenge on Max Aarons. It's controversial to some degree because he does win the ball, but then the follow through with the studs up going into Aarons' shin. I think that if, you know, VAR was operational in the Championship, whether you sort of agree or disagree with the penalty being given, I think that would probably be overruled. So from that aspect, Wigan probably got away with one there. So yeah, somewhat frustrating for Norwich again, albeit we saw a little bit more purpose from them in the final third, but Wigan, I actually thought, defended the penalty box fairly well throughout this one, you know, considering that Norwich had 22 shots, only 4 of them were on target. Next then to Ashton Gate for Bristol City 2, Sunderland 3. Once again, the same problems arise for Bristol City. Some great interplay in the final third, but defensively, massively letting themselves down once again. The first goal was really through their own making. Naismith has an absolute howler being caught out on the ball, and Ellis Sims is presented with that chance to go ahead and get his debut goal, the second of which was an absolute finish and a half, by the way. Bristol City do manage to turn things around though before Sims gets his second of this game. Andy Weimann with his second goal of the season already. Some lovely play in the build up to that one before Chris Martin then takes the lead for Bristol City. But once again, this Bristol City side failing to hold on to what they have and see out a game. And how many times did this crop up as a problem last season for Bristol City? Alex Pritchard with a couple of assists in the second half, the second of which to Ross Stewart. Big for him to go ahead and get off the mark for the season in the second game week as well. Lovely header to make it 3-2 to Sunderland. I think that on showing of what we've seen from this Sunderland squad over the first 2 game weeks, I don't think there's a question that you know, they won't be good enough to go ahead and cut it at the Championship. They're more than good enough for this level, and I'm particularly excited to see where that partnership this season between Sims and Stewart goes this season, because I think there's a bunch of goals between those two to come. Next Next then to Turf Moor for Burnley drawing 1-1 with Luton. An interesting game. I thought we all saw this one being a tougher challenge for Burnley, coming off the high of that opening day win against Huddersfield, with Luton being less standoffish than Huddersfield were. It was always going to be interesting to see how Burnley would adapt to this sort of game. Luton taking the lead after just 5 minutes as well, set them up for a good one in this one. Brownhill eventually equalising. Lovely finish as he cuts across that ball from outside the box. Once again, we saw Burnley having plenty of the ball, 70% possession in this one in the end, 12 shots but only 1 on target. Perhaps, especially with Twine, I think, who's out for the next few weeks now with a little bit of a muscle injury. The question does pop up, does this Burnley side still need a little bit more adding to it in the final third? Potentially so. We go back to those comments that Company made on the opening game week of the season, where he said that at the moment there probably isn't that recognised, forward who's going to get 20 goals plus this season. Instead, there's going to be goals coming from all around. But in these sorts of matches, that is where, that main figurehead up front can probably make the difference. Decent point, though, for Luton, who now make it 2 for 2 in terms of points on the board this season. Particularly interesting to see Luton next week, as obviously Preston travel there. And speaking of Preston, it was another goalless draw for us as we drew 0-0 with Hull City. Yet to see a goal this season as a Preston fan. This one, a little bit frustrating in some ways for Preston, as I thought we were the better team throughout this one. I think that Preston actually had the second highest XG throughout the Championship teams this weekend, but once again we didn't manage to capitalise on that and turn that into any goals. The first half, Preston started out quite well, but Hull did have a 10 or so minute spell where there were a few things sort of that started to click for them, but Freddie Woodman, virtually had nothing to do all afternoon really. Hull only had 1 shot on target throughout this one. Second half was really one-way traffic. I think by that point Hull had sort of settled for the point. The midfield couldn't quite get on the ball and make things tick. I thought we actually pressed them quite well, and particularly to limit the impact of Seri, who absolutely ran the show on the opening weekend for Hull. For Preston, it was a frustrating second half of missed opportunities really. Reece, Parrott, Brady, a few others all getting opportunities, but nothing quite falling for us in the final third. The general state of play in terms of, some of the build-up, how we were creating chances and getting around Hull, I thought was all quite promising. It's just that final finish which was missing from our performance. So if that comes in the next few weeks, then it's a solid foundation to go ahead and build on. 2 clean sheets from 2 matches so far. We just need that final ball to drop for us in the final third, which as of right now just hasn't clicked for us yet. Next then to Loftus Road, we had QPR getting their first points on the board as they saw off Middlesbrough in a dramatic 3-2 thriller. How many points is Chris Willett going to be worth for QPR this season? We said in the opening game week how they missed that little bit of a spark in the final third, and he absolutely added it in this game, driving the ball from his own half and that unbelievable finish from outside the box to open things up after just 13 minutes. Doubling the lead after 27 as well. I thought that Zach Stefan had a little bit of a howler with that second goal. I think he was claiming there was a little bit of a push, but watching back from that replay behind the goal, I think he has to be a little bit stronger in that position. He was just sort of crowded out really. And obviously QPR making it 3 through Lyndon Dykes after a nicely taken set piece routine. Middlesbrough did threaten to get back into this one. They brought it back to 3-2, but ultimately had too much of an uphill battle to go ahead and get across, and Lenihan then getting sent off in the last minute didn't help things either. For Middlesbrough, I think we all expect them to be pretty busy from now until the end of the window in terms of more additions coming in, particularly with that loss of Tavernier as well, which I do think has probably rocked Middlesbrough to some extent, because I was certainly under the impression that he'd be a player who'd be sticking around for this season. So yeah, not ideal for Middlesbrough, but really like what I saw from QPR in this one, particularly in contrast to game week 1 against Blackburn. Next then we had Reading getting off the mark with their first win of the season as they turned around this one against Cardiff to win 2-1. I think for teams that were tipped to be in amongst the bottom half of the Championship especially, to get that first win as soon as possible I think is absolutely massive, and in the circumstances that Reading did it in this game as well, coming back from behind, having conceded after just 4 minutes, Callum O'Dowda with the opener for Cardiff, I think is a good signal of intent for Reading. They obviously grew into that game against Blackpool as things went on, but they couldn't afford for this game to go ahead and get away from them. They equalised after just 27 minutes. Shane Long from the penalty spot, rolling back the years, he gets off the mark for the season in a Reading shirt. And I have to say, over the course of these first couple of weeks in the Championship, we've already seen some absolute belters being scored, and Tom Ince with the winning goal in this one, automatically in that category for one of the best goals we've seen this season. Brilliant hit from outside the box with that left foot, and all things considered, a great win there for Reading, who needed that, I think, early on. And speaking of needing all 3 points, I think that Sheffield United were certainly in that boat after that opening day defeat to Watford. But what a performance up against a tough-looking Millwall side going off game week 1. Sheffield United walked away victorious in this one, but this one could have been 3-4-0 going off the chances they created. Ilman Ndiaye had an absolute field day in this one, got the opening goal, but was absolutely running the show in the final third, and he's a player who I can't wait to see more of as this season goes on. Sander Berge made it 2-0. We then had Norwood missing that penalty just before half time as well, and a bunch of chances continuing into the second half. If that's the blueprint for Sheffield United going forward this season, then I do think there's quite a bit of promise of Sheffield United being right up and amongst it in terms of the promotion picture this season. For Millwall, they set the bar quite high on game week 1, couldn't quite live up to those expectations in this one. I thought that maybe a few of the players that were missing turned out to be crucial. Honeyman and Fleming perhaps, could they have added a little bit more dynamism and spark in the final third? Probably. They failed to create much in this one, but Sheffield United did look good for the money in this one. Stoke saw off Blackpool by 2-0, and I think were deserved winners from this one as well, going off chances created and the momentum that seemed to be flowing throughout this Stoke squad, and the result which was definitely needed after the disappointment of game week 1 against Millwall. Josh Tymon causing absolute havoc down that left hand side, assisted both of the goals, created 5 chances in total, and looked like a real threat throughout the entire afternoon. Clark with the opener, Brown with the winner in the 75th minute, and Blackpool never quite seemed to really get going for this one. Josh Bowler seemed to have a few moments when he would wiggle out of a tight situation and get past a player, but ultimately to no real avail. Blackpool finished the afternoon without a single shot on target. Stoke much better in the final third, chances being created, and potentially that forward two of Brown and Gale could be something to work with throughout this season for Stoke. So yeah, good way for them to go ahead and get off the mark. Blackpool not quite at it in this one. And then to finish things off, we have Blackburn smashing Swansea by 3-0. Blackburn tend to start the season off quite fast every year, but I for one didn't see this coming. Blackburn didn't really need to have a lot of the ball either to be effective in the final third. For the first goal, they pounced upon that defensive mistake from Swansea. Sami Smodic's getting a debut goal. I mentioned at the time I was a little bit unsure about that transfer when it went through, but that's going to be a massive confidence booster to him getting going at Blackburn. After that, we had plenty of interplay from Swansea in and around the box, and they probably could have had a goal or two, but Blackburn being absolutely ruthless, picking apart Swansea on quick transitions and counter-attacks, and ultimately playing on their weaknesses. Ben Brereton with an absolutely fantastic dinked finish, and then Travis with another one to add to the collection this season to seal it up with that 3-0 away win. Yeah, vintage Blackburn this was when they were at sort of their best last season, especially on the road. Those quick transitions and breakaways, and that was all in full effect with this one. But Swansea, so frustrating. But guys, there we have it. Those are all the matches we had going on over the weekend. Obviously, we've still got West Brom against Watford to come tonight at the Hawthorns. Very much excited to see where those two sides are at this stage. And we as well had the bizarre occurrence with the Coventry game being called off against Rotherham because of the state of the pitch. Prior to that game being called off, a few pictures had surfaced of the actual playing surface at Coventry, and it did look like an absolute state, to be fair. I think from that point, a few people feared for the worst, really. I'm sure that Coventry fans are more frustrated than anyone out of this whole thing, really. It's an absolute shambles. So yeah, welcome some of your guys' comments on that one down below. But that will wrap it up for today's video, guys. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do stick around on the channel for plenty of content which is coming out over the next few weeks. Thanks for watching though, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.